Hello, this is Calvin at my World of JSK YouTube channel. And today we have another vintage laptop to take a look at from the collection in the cabinet over there. And this one is the PowerBook 520c. A very interesting model. The 500 series PowerBooks came after the 100 series PowerBooks. And, well, were some of the first PowerBooks to have color screens. This one, obviously, the C stands for color. The design, in my opinion, of this laptop is pretty ugly. At the time, I'm sure it was intended to be very curvy, very, svelte, very smooth and all that, but it kind of is just a little bit of a mess. One thing that I really dislike is that the actual panel of the screen is curved downwards, so it kind of has this weird, curvy, just weird look when you open it up, which we will do shortly. The only other thing I would like to comment on before we open it up, well, there's a couple things. First of all, this power adapter. I don't know how easy that is to see, but there are like a bunch of little pins, and this is one of the most weird power adapters I've ever used. It was a pain to get one because I bought the computer. It didn't come with a power supply for some reason. All these vintage laptops are sold without power supplies. Drives me crazy. The other thing is this laptop has the flimsiest feet. All the early PowerBooks had these fold-down feet. But this laptop has the flimsiest feet that I've yet seen. Let's see if I can position this here so that you can kind of see. If I lift this up, they just kind of snap down, and they're just little pieces of plastic. And so I don't like it. I'm constantly worried I'm going to break them. These are the worst feet of any PowerBook that I am aware of. And in fact, I think the award for worst design of any of these vintage PowerBooks goes to these. It's inelegant and just weird compared to the 100 series. It's bulky and massive compared to the 200 series. It's not as cool looking as the 5300 and the 190. It's just a kind of a mess design-wise, but that's one of the reasons why we love collecting vintage computer equipment. If it were beautiful and gorgeous, perhaps everyone would collect it. So let's open it up. Inside's not really any more beautiful than the outside. Let me close this to get a little bit of a better view. I'm not sure that helped, actually. We've got PowerBook 520c up here. Kind of curves towards you. Got brightness and controls and stuff here. We've got the first trackpads, actually, of any laptop. This was an innovation in trackpad design, and while it may have functioned perfectly at the time, this one is very, very broken. It's so glitchy and so unresponsive that it's almost unusable, which is why I've attached my trusty ADB mouse. You will also notice the row of function keys. Steve Jobs' antithesis. I don't believe those were included on the 100 series, although I could be wrong. And of course, we've still got the weird arrangement of the arrow keys. New since the 100 series is this on-keyboard power switch, which we will be pushing in just a moment. That is far more convenient in my mind than having to reach around to the back to turn it on. And before we turn this thing on, I'll just forewarn you that the speakers are also messed up. I don't know what's wrong with them, but they make an awful rattling sound all the time. So be prepared when you hear the startup sound to hear rattling. Oh, also, this device has two bays, one on each side, one on either side of the trackpad. Right now they both contain nothing. This one has a plug on it that just keeps it nice, I guess. The other one doesn't even have that, so at some point the battery was removed from this. But this was very innovative at the time. You could put two batteries in here, and it would hold two batteries, and you'd have more battery life, I suppose. I think you could get up to 4 or 5, maybe even 5 hours, which was quite the feat. I don't have that much to say. Oh, also we've got a caps lock key with a light on it, which I think is also new from the 100 series. So without further ado, we'll start it up. Here we go. I told you it was bad. Now, the color is actually pretty nice. I'm not unhappy with the way that colors and stuff look. It's gonna look slightly worse on the camera, I think, but oh, come on. Focus is always so terrible, I don't understand. There we are. Jeez. I'm using an unfamiliar tripod and it's not a very good tripod. So you can see the color is actually pretty vibrant, and it's even a little more vibrant in person. I was actually kind of surprised when I turned this thing on that the color was so nice looking. But you get this trade-off. It takes a significantly longer time to boot up. Now, this computer has an interesting story, as with all my computers. I got it, wouldn't boot up. We just had a question mark, you know, the classic question mark icon. So I looked into it and ended up basically using my PC that I had at the time to burn a Disk Tools floppy and put it in there. And lo and behold, it found the hard drive, and there was a hard drive in it, and it belonged to a Stanford psychology major. Lots of you know, papers and stuff on there, so that was really interesting. I mean, I don't rifle through that stuff, but you can just tell by the, you know, titles of folders and stuff. And so what I ended up then having to do is basically burn 7 floppy disks to get a clean install of the operating system, which I believe is System 7.5, maybe just 7.5. But anyways, that was an interesting, illuminating process. And the burning floppy disks is kind of a drag, and I do not recommend it. But we got a clean install, and then I put some software on it. That's kind of the background. So we can look at the About This PowerBook. All my vintage laptops have a document like this that just tells you general information. Introduced in May '94. It's got a 25 megahertz 68040 processor. Shipped with 4 megs and has been upgraded to 12. It supports a maximum of 36 megs. Has a floppy drive and 2 expansion bays. We already talked about that. Has a 240 megabyte drive. Now for ports, we have serial port, sound, headphone jack, ADB port, which we're using right now, AAUI 15 Ethernet port. These things are the worst. You have to get an adapter. The adapter is expensive and hard to find if you want it to work with modern Ethernet, which of course, you know, it's kind of rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic anyways, because you're not really going to get any real internet access. Modem, HDI 30 SCSI, Kensington lock. Sold in '94 in the US for $2,800, which is $46.49 in 2017 dollars. That's last year, but I haven't updated it since then. I forgot that I purchased this machine for $10 on eBay. So I hadn't seen, well, I saw pictures of it, but I didn't know if it worked. Seller had no way to test because they didn't have a power cable. Again, I recommend that if you get rid, it's a good lesson, if you get rid of a laptop, you should probably wipe the hard drive. Otherwise, anyone who buys it and puts any effort at all into restoring it can see everything that's on there. Actually have done a couple things with this laptop. For instance, here is a Mac, and I'm going to have to blur out my name here, but here's a Mac, or a ClarisWorks draw file. And what this is actually a floor plan. It happens to be a Minecraft floor plan, interestingly enough. And this is the bottom floor of a bunker that I was building. And I'm happy to say that this draw software is actually really comparable to any modern software that I've used for this purpose, and is in fact way more easy to use and far more convenient than any modern software that I've used for this purpose. It's really a joy to use. So that's pretty cool. And this turned out nice. There's all sorts of patterns you can choose from. You can do all kinds of things. You can add color if you want, but I kept it black and white for the sake of clarity. The other thing I thought would be funny was, well, since it's a color screen, you know, what if we try to put an image on here? So I loaded up an image that I took in, well, I don't know, 2008 or something, And I put it on here, and the short of it is, oh, it's going to say it can't convert it. I forgot about that. What we need to do is go into Photoshop, because I put Adobe Photoshop 251 on here, which is a program that you can download from Macintosh Garden. That's where I get a lot of this software. And, oops, going to clear that out too. And, so basically, the short story is, I'm not sure whether it would have worked with old photos, you know, back in the day. This particular photo, it's painfully slow, and I'll show you how painfully slow it is. Once it gets there, it'll begin loading the photo, but it loads it extremely slowly. But it will load it eventually, and I found that really interesting. One of my ideas was to get one of those Sony Mavic cameras that use floppy disks, and try to take some pictures with that and put it on here and see how that worked. I thought that would have been a really interesting experiment. Maybe I'll get one of those. I think they're $10 a dozen on eBay if you get a certain model or whatever. Trying to think what else I would have to say about this machine. It's clunky, but it kind of gets the job done. It has to be plugged in. Obviously, I don't have a battery for it, and the batteries wouldn't work if they did. I am working on an interesting battery restore project on another machine that I'll show you once that gets done, and I think it'll be really neat with putting a modern battery into a Duo, PowerBook Duo 230. So I guess stay tuned for that. But we're almost there with the progress bar, and I won't make you sit through the whole loading of the image. Alright, so our progress bar has disappeared, and as you can see, the image is beginning to load. It's just loading in waves from the top left, and it's actually a pretty neat image, so maybe I will let it load. It's going faster than I remembered it going before. It's a pond photo. Doesn't really make fantastic use of the color capabilities of this screen, nor is it particularly high resolution. It's not a black and white photo. It is a color photo. It's just the colors are kind of, by nature obscured in this photo. You know, we can look at it. I'm not sure. Can we zoom in? Image size? Okay, I don't really want to mess with that. Anyways, here's the photo. You can see everything takes forever, even closing this dialog box. So obviously this is a much more modern photo than this computer would have been intended to work with. But it's just an interesting view of the capabilities, and I can do all kinds of stuff with Photoshop if I really wanted to. But yeah. Well, I think that will conclude our look at the PowerBook 520c. It's an interesting machine, certainly, with an interesting power supply and interesting history. There's still a lot more stuff I could do with this machine that I'm looking forward to doing potentially at some point in the future. But for now, it's just part of the collection, and I thought I would show it off for y'all. So, thank you for watching. This has been Calvin, and hope to see you again soon for another vintage laptop video. I'm not sure which one I'll do next, but we'll have to see.